This conference will now be recorded.
Russ, will you open us with prayer, please?
Yeah, everybody, please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you at this time just ever so thankful for the community that we get to live in and to represent. And we just ask that you offer wisdom and guidance in the decisions that we're about to make and how they affect everybody. We also just ask that we lift up those people that are dealing with the crisis right now, and we know that we'll be stronger when we come through this. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Russ. So we'll move to item number 3, public comments and receipt of petitions. So at this time, anyone is allowed to speak on any matter other than personnel matters or matters under litigation for a length of time not to exceed 3 minutes. No board discussion or action may take place on a matter until such matter has been placed on an agenda and posted in accordance with law. We're required to read that. Everything is okay there. We'll move to the section 4 under the regular session. Board to review and consider approving the minutes of the April 13th, 2020 meeting.
So moved.
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Great, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the April 13th, 2020 meeting. All in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye. Thank you. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it and the motion is carried. We'll move to item 4B, board to review and consider approving payment of accounts payable.
Hey, Ken, before we move into approving these payables, I had a couple of questions regarding the payables this month.
Okay.
I'm getting a lot of feedback. Are you guys too?
Yes.
No, I can mute
Oh,
your
that's
mic.
much better. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Ken, I had a couple of questions regarding this month's payables. First of all, on the Vortex invoice, I wanted to confirm, and maybe there's a presentation that is coming later, but this appears to be the second and final draw. Is that correct, or is this the first draw, the $364,110? I wasn't for sure if that was the second half or the first half, or where are we at on the splash pad expenditures?
Misha, would you address that? You've got that in front of you with your stuff.
So, Joseph, that is the second half. We paid $317.96 back on March 15th.
Okay.
And then $364,110 is the second part to Vortex. And so that has us all paid up to Vortex except for the training, which hasn't been performed. And once that's performed, that'd be another $5,000. So in all, it would be $650,969.75.
I think it might be good. I mean, just from my perspective, I'd like to see an accounting of where we are on this. From
I have a spreadsheet that I shared with Carolyn, and I can share with everyone else as well. That would be helpful.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Next one is KXOX. What is that? Small Town Strong Broadcasting. What is that?
We partnered with the Chamber of Commerce and did just a small little promotional deal that went on for a month, just talking about shopping local, taking care of your local restaurants, ordering if you can, more of just a little positive thing to keep things rolling.
It was outreach efforts?
Yes, sir.
Essentially, yeah. Okay. Then also, sorry, I've got two more questions and I'll move on. The payable to our attorney, I had basically described my concern of altering contracts, or not altering, but changing contracts after they were concluded. And now I see where not only did we change the contract, but it actually cost us quite a bit of money. I'm fumbling through papers. Wetzel's bill was for over $2,000, and 1,850 of it was specifically to change the contract associated with Icy Breeze. I didn't like the practice of changing contracts after they were agreed upon. I sure don't like us having to pay the attorney bills in doing so. And I would think that cost needed to be passed on to the participant. That's just my opinion.
I guess I'm not sure how to respond to that. I think that was just something that we felt that going through that process is something to help that company. And yes, it is a cost to us. And I guess on that, I'm not sure how to respond to that.
Well, it cost the taxpayer $1,822 to change that contract. And I bring it up again, voicing my concern over the practice of changing contracts, and now it actually cost us in additional legal fees. I just feel like from my one board member perspective, I would urge management to avoid that practice going forward.
No, I appreciate that.
Thirdly, or lastly, sure. Lastly, Ken, we spent $500 at Hef's Burgers. What is that?
We fed the rural health clinic, all their employees.
You fed the, I'm sorry, you cut out there. You fed the rural health clinic?
Yes, we fed all the employees at the rural health clinic.
Is that something that Seed does often?
No, we don't have a COVID very often, so that was one of the things that we felt like just a small way we could help some groups out that are something like the first responder type stuff.
Yeah, the bank took pizza to the entire hospital one day, and I think it's a great thing for businesses to do. I'm just wondering if a taxing authority needs to be doing that. And that's just a personal question. Maybe the other board members could chime in on their opinion.
I wondered about it too. I wondered why do we, I mean, I think it's a worthy cause, of course, to help anybody in this situation. So that's not I wondered about it when I saw it. I just thought, how do you equitably do that? As far as choosing the rural health clinic over the fire department, they're a taxing entity as well, or even over the hospital, and then does that go with our mission as far as, I don't know. And then when you choose a restaurant, how do you choose one restaurant to support and not another? That I agree with Joseph when I just wonder about our practice of doing that. I don't know. I'm not sure that is something that we should get into. And I know it sounds like you're going against the idea of helping someone, and I don't mean it that way. I just mean from Seed. I just think we have to be conscientious of what our mission is. But that's my opinion. I do agree with Joseph on that. What does everybody else think?
I think those are valid concerns.
I'm not getting a picture on Jared. Do you not have your camera on, Jared?
Now it's on, so is my microphone.
No video. To address the Hefsberger, I do not have an opinion strongly one way or the other on that. I think as members of the community, irregardless of our place, We need to participate in any way we can to support our first responders, our fire people, our restaurants, our community, everybody involved. And $500 is so minimal. It's just not very important.
So if this is something the board would direct us not to do going forward, then that's what will happen.
Well, I bring it up. Just, I know we all care and we all want to do everything we can to help. I just, as guardians of the treasurer of seed taxpayer funds, is it an appropriate expenditure? Was the purpose of my request to even discuss it. So, I think we've got some mixed opinions there, but going forward, I think that we personally in our for-profit businesses, I think that's the place for that as opposed to taxpayer funds. That's my humble opinion.
Well, we appreciate comments.
Yeah, I think
That's
you
all.
open yourself. I think you open yourself up to why did you do for this group and not for the other? That's my concern. And plus we were helping the rural health clinic is owned by another taxing entity. I don't know. I think it's wonderful to help people, but I'm not sure that it would succeed in using those funds. I'm not sure that it's the best, that it lines up, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And I know I agree with Gil. It's the dollar amount is inconsequential, but if you wanted to help everyone, that's all Misha and Ken would be doing. They'd be running around buying from every restaurant and helping every group. So okay. Anybody else have a comment on that? Thank you, Joseph. I think it's good to, talk about those things, I think. So, so we will, we need a.
One question before we move to approve, and I will make that motion. Ken, is there any negotiation of passing those legal costs on to your client in regards to that contract? I know it was probably not discussed up front. And if you say that that's not proper, we wouldn't do that. All right. Having said that, I move that we approve the accounts payable.
I have one more question for Misha. We will get a copy of that spreadsheet on total expenses to Vortex and all involved from the splash pad. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And I also shared the apartment spreadsheet with Carolyn as well. If y'all would like me to do that, I can share that with y'all periodically as it's updated. Good.
Okay. Everything seems to be broken into little bitty pieces and little bitty payments. I'd like to see a total bill submitted.
Yeah.
I would challenge Tal and his group to show us a bottom line on that product, because as I drive by the splash pad, I'm totally unimpressed. I hate to tell you that, but I'm totally unimpressed.
Wow. Misha, I think you can share that because I was going to share what you sent me this morning, but I'm not the organizer. You could probably share that spreadsheet because you're the organizer. You want to share it with the group right now so they can see it? It wouldn't take a second.
Sure, I need to make some adjustments. Like I talked to you this morning about the tally adjustment and everything. I can share it with you right after the meeting if I can make those adjustments.
I would rather have hard copy than.
Okay. I can bring up a copy.
Okay.
And I second
Joseph's motion.
All right. It's moved and seconded that we approve the accounts payable. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? The ayes have it and the motion is carried. Move to item 4C, board to review and consider approving the March 2020 financial statements.
All right. Just one thing to point out on the designated fund balance on the balance sheet, we had a pretty large decrease in designated funds, but that's just due to the initial payment to Vortex for the splash pad. And we also paid paydex that month as well. So those are those two big decreases in that designated fund balance. If you want to turn to the income statement, there's not a whole lot unless there's just kind of some questions on specific line items. Does anybody have any questions on those? I know we're over budget on a couple, like the rental, which we paid the chamber for the full year, and the administration fee, which we pay up front, and the dues and subscriptions, which a lot of those come at the beginning of the fiscal year. And so our budget kind of shows that we're a little over on a few of those, but those are kind of one-time a year payments. If you want to look at the designated fund balance, there's not a whole lot of change. We made a payment to the city of Sweetwater for the splash pad and the paydex for their 1 2-bedroom apartment that they submitted. If you want to look at your sales tax sheet, I kind of did a few changes on this. I added a percent change column to kind of see the percent change from the month in 2019 to the month in 2020. Also, David was able to provide us with the sales tax that we will receive in May a little earlier than normal. And so I kind of put that in there grayed out. We're down a little bit from the month before, but we have a lot of, that's kind of when the COVID started hitting and everything. And if you'll also notice that I added a couple of little asterisks below the chart, I kind of thought that this would be, useful in explaining increases and decreases, just like the 2011 transmission company moving here, the ETJ is when we came into effect, and we started receiving taxes in September 2018. And then I kind of just started, keeping track of when the COVID should start hitting our sales tax as well. If you will see, our unemployment, every county around us has increased just like us. We're still below the Texas average for March 2020, but yeah, those unemployment numbers have increased, which is kind of explainable. But yes, ma'am.
Beach, I have a question. I didn't notice this before, but I pulled the sales tax information off the comptroller's website last week. And I noticed, seeds part, the municipal developments part is down from May of last year, 90,000, and then we're at 88,700, which is curious because I don't know why, but the city is up. The city's part for May of 2019, am I right? Yeah, was 270,800. And then for May of 2020, they're 273,000. Why would they be up 3 and seed down 2? I know you don't know that answer, but that's that just hit me. Does anybody have an answer for that? That's great. I don't understand that.
Carolyn,
possible explanation.
this is David. Those final numbers include audit adjustments for both parties. And so it may not be the exact number of sales, but we may have been owed $10,000 from a prior audit adjustment. And so that's reflected in our number. But for the past, I don't know how many months, you guys have been up and we've been down. And so that's just the nature of how things go with the comptroller's office sometimes. But a lot of that is due to audit adjustments.
Okay. And you can call and find out if it's a significant audit adjustment, but we haven't done that, I guess, right? So we don't know. Okay.
If you would like, I can do that. If you would. I don't think I can ask for the city, but
interesting it's interesting to me that because ours has been up every time compared to the city, and then now they're up. So anyway, I don't know. Sales tax is a moving target. I understand that. So I just anyway.
And I believe Ken had something to add on the designated fund balance. You're on mute, Ken.
Just a quick update on Dent Trucking. You know what? We were making sure that we didn't really keep track of anything that their obligation was outside of what week guaranteed, but to give you an idea, they continue to pay down their obligation. They're down at $251,998 right now. So that's changed about $150,000 over the last 13, 14 months in a positive direction.
Are there any other questions?
I move approval of financials.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the March 2020 financial statements be approved. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is carried. So we'll go to item 4D, right, Ken? Go to item 4D.
What we might do, if you don't mind, is move down to 5C. That way Dana can actually explain everything that would be covered under 4D.
Perfect. Okay. So 5, what did you say? 5, did you say 5C? Yeah, 5C. I'm sorry. Okay.
5C.
Sorry. All right, David, you're up.
Dana.
Dana, okay, we're going to go to Dana. Okay, Dana will do that.
All right, Dana, you're muted.
Okay, good morning. This is an update actually as it would relate to an action item of the board this morning. So the update to the asbestos consulting discussion is we're continuing at looking, as you know, properties on Broadway to identify that there are dangerous structures and sending out proper notifications and trying to get property owners to take care of these properties. These 4 properties that you'll be considering here this morning have gone through all that process, and we're at the point that they have been declared as dangerous and dilapidated, and the addresses are listed in this proposal for an asbestos survey action to pay for that. It's 1500 and 1502 East Broadway, which is the Palomino Hotel. It's 2 tracks. And 1912 East Broadway, 3307 West Broadway, and 3211 West Broadway. These are properties that I had provided to the board in previous meetings. So we're at the point now of doing some asbestos surveys, and that's required by state law to do asbestos surveys on commercial properties that have been declared dangerous. And so we're at that point now to do that. And so we've kind of gone through quite a lot of process, and now we're at the point of implementation. Once we do the asbestos surveys, that will then give us documents for each of these properties to go out and seek bids on asbestos removal, if any is found. The number of samples and so forth for each asbestos for each property is based on square footage and types of materials, construction materials in those structures. And so when you look at the proposed cost on another item, that's what that's based on. Once we get the asbestos survey and we seek bids for the removal, then this will come back to the board with that information to propose asbestos removal and to pay for asbestos removal. And once that is completed, then we would do that and then go through a demolition of the remaining building or whatever isn't removed on the inside as it would relate to asbestos, and the buildings would come down. That's sort of the process. We're still a few months out, most likely, to get all of that accomplished, but this is an important step to start the implementation of that at this point in time. So I'm excited to bring these to you. Quite honestly, I think that these are properties that they do not have value. They're declared dangerous, and they're blighting influences on our main arterial, both sides coming into Sweetwater. And so this is probably the beginning steps of taking a look at some other properties, but also giving property owners the ability to take care of those properties before we get to this point. And that's been voiced by the board, and certainly we'll take care of that as we move along and give every opportunity for a property owner to do what they need to do, but advising them of the situation. So that's kind of the update. We'll have more properties coming your way at some point here, but these are really four very important ones I think that we need to move on at this point in time. And that's why I bring these these costs to you to start that step to, again, very significant demolition, most likely, of these properties.
And just as a reminder to the board, one action in this does not obligate you further actions to do those things. Each one will be a step by step, and once one step is approved and done, then the next step would be brought back to you for a future decision. So you're not obligated going any further than this if you choose to start this process on these 4 buildings.
Will these costs be passed on to the landowners?
Yes, anything that we would do, we would, because we establish liens on properties, that they would have to be placed on the properties for any work like this or demolition. So that's part of it too. Whether we get them that money back, it's hard to say because they may go up for taxes, might end up to be trustee properties, but we'll follow the letter of the law to put the liens on the properties. Because it's taxpayer funded work, we have to put liens on the property.
So it's staff recommendation, should we as a board continue to want to work in the demolition side, that we recommend that we go forward and get these 4 asbestos studies.
Dana, refresh my memory. So have the landowners been, or the property owners been contacted and told what's going to happen or what the procedures are from this point forward?
Sure. The first thing that we do is when we identify a property, we have to send out letters to the property owners, certified or registered mail. And then they have the opportunity to come before the city council because the city council would act on declaring that as dangerous or dilapidated. If in fact we get feedback from a property owner, we bring that to the city council's attention, and then they make a decision based on the input or concerns or whatever they get of property owners. And in these properties, we did not receive any concerns. So we went through the process as identified through our code of ordinances.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if everyone saw it, but there was a quote from Protect Kids and Todd for the amount of $6,290.48 for these 4 properties. That was attached in the email with your board packet.
If I may,
Do we know how long the survey will take?
If the board approves them, we will work with Hibbs and Todd and let them know tomorrow and get them under contract to do so. It won't take probably about 30 days for the process to receive results of their sampling.
I, for one, have a lot of feedback from concerned individuals in the community in a very positive manner of the work that's been ongoing to remove these blemishes from our main corridors. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And Dana, thank you for getting us to this point. I would move that we approve this as recommended by staff.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second to consider approving funds in the amount of $6,290.48. Do I need to say to whom? Improtech, Hibbs and Todd? Okay. For asbestos consulting of 4 properties located on Broadway as per the Exhibit A and the scope of services on Hibbs and Todd's reference request for proposal. So all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed?
Thank you.
The ayes have it and the motion is carried. And may I ask a question that doesn't have to do with the, to Dana, with the motion, but how did we select these properties?
How did we select these properties?
These
Well-
first, the ones on West Broadway are so far west. You know, they're not in the corner.
So when I had gone through and did a pretty good inventory of Broadway, I felt that these were properties that clearly have been vacant for a long time. I think quite honestly blighting influences. I know there's a couple out near West Broadway. I also know that that's a major route coming into the city. It's a route to where our airport, we've got TSTC, so there's a lot of traffic there. Felt that that, and in addition to 3003 Broadway, which is a residential property that's in the process of being demoed, would be good ones to remove those influences and provide a better image. They're probably more the low-hanging fruit, I would say, Carolyn, honestly, than some of the others. So I think that these were easy ones, at least from my perspective, to move forward on and get us started on this process. And I think we would certainly work our way into the city area. I think our existing commercial area closer to the downtown is a focus as we continue here. But these were just pretty, again, the low-hanging fruit properties, in my opinion. And a Palomino Hotel, for instance, is something I've heard about since day one that I've been here. So I felt that was probably one we needed to move on as quick as we could.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dana. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, good deal. So 4D. So I think, Ken, where should we go to? City of Sweetwater update? Is that where we are?
Yes, ma'am. We can go back to 4A and 4B.
Okay, so now, David, please give us an update. Thank you.
Okay, all I've got on the splash pad, as far as what the agenda refers to, is that we're working with the lawyers right now, y'all's attorney Jeff and our special counsel Dan Santee, and trying to get them together to start working on 2 resolutions that will be required to make this happen. The first resolution would go to the MDD, and we're hoping in June. That would be a resolution to donate the splash pad to the city of Sweetwater. And then the second resolution would be taken up by the city council accepting that donation of the splash pad to the city of Sweetwater. That's really how it works when you have something like this going on. When I was in Abilene years ago, a nonprofit paid for the first splash pad that we built in Abilene. And this is the process that we undertook to get that ownership from the nonprofit group to the city. That way the nonprofit doesn't incur any liability or any of the cost of owning or operating the facility. They're out of it. If some kid falls and cracks their head open, it's the city of Sweetwater that gets sued, not the MDD, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we're working on right now in those resolutions. We're looking at a June timeframe for them to come to both parties, and then we'll go from there. We'll make that exchange and then go from there.
If I might ask, David, one of the things in talking with our attorney, there was some question of ownership in the fact that we didn't sign contracts with Vortex, and we're doing a reimbursement back to the city. So we're just trying to get a handle on that. And like you said, our attorney is going to be talking with Mr. Santee, and I hope that he's already sent that first email that I asked him to do last week.
Yes, sir. And I'll check on our side. I'll check with Mr. Santee to see if he's received that. If not, or if so, I'll let you know, Ken.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Um, Ken and Misha, can we maybe get, if you could also send the board a copy of that interlocal agreement? I'd like to have a copy of the interlocal agreement. This is really confusing to me because we had an interlocal agreement and then we had some kind of a resolution, which maybe if we could get a copy of that as well, the original, whatever that resolution. But Seed does not own this property. So I don't see how Seed can transfer ownership to the city. I mean, if we owned it, wouldn't we have been responsible if someone had an accident while or maybe they have an accident they don't know about and they could still come back on Seed during the construction period? This just doesn't make sense to me. It's just not adding up. I don't understand the need for I mean, I am questioning it, I guess. And I know I'm not an attorney and they will figure it out, but my goodness, for two different attorneys to use taxpayer money to have to take this even a step further. I understand if a nonprofit had purchased it and then you transfer the ownership, it's a donation or a gift. But we've actually reimbursed the city for all their costs, or for, you paid Vortex and we reimbursed you. We don't own it. So I'm really just confused about this. And I know that attorneys will work it out, but this is does anybody else have any questions about this? I don't know.
Well, those were some of the same questions that Jeff Allen and us talked about. He did say that he can, still put together a resolution, would not be a problem, would want to include some certain verbiage in it. But that was his initial response, is didn't think that we actually owned the equipment, that we were just reimbursing.
This is something that I've done before. And so, and I talked to our attorney about it, and he said, this is the process that needs to take place in order for the transfer of the ownership to happen. So that's what I'm going off of. And it would be good if Mr. Santee and Jeff got their brains together, legal brains together, and worked it out. And Carolyn, if you're right, you're right. If you're not, you're not. And that'll be determined by the lawyers, and we'll do what we need to do. If we need to transfer ownership, that's what we're going to do. If it's okay the way that it is, then that's fine. But the last I was told by our legal counsel was that the MDD has ownership of the project at this point, and that ownership needs to be transferred. And here's the mechanism and how you do it. And that's what I'm going off of is their legal opinion, because I'm not a lawyer.
Right. We just didn't sign a contract with Vortex. I don't see how we could own it. And it makes me nervous to think that Seed would have owned at any point this splash pad. I don't think our board would have agreed to own it. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But anyway.
Well, okay, that's fine. We'll get it worked out, is the bottom line, right?
Does anybody else have any opinions on this or any questions on this? Any other board members, Seed board members? I mean, maybe I'm off on left track, but that just doesn't, I don't know. I don't know why we're paying these attorneys more.
No, Carolyn, I agree with you from what I've been brought up to speed. That's the way I see it. I don't ever remember, where we were assigned ownership. I mean, I'm just as confused and concerned as you are.
If you want to keep it the way that it's been, that's fine. And then when somebody cracks their head open and find out who does own it, then we're going to say y'all. That's fine. That's fine with me. I have no problem with that. But I'd like to do what the attorneys suggest. And our attorney suggested this path forward. So that's the way we're going to go. If you guys don't want to sign the paperwork, you don't have to sign the paperwork.
The question is, should we have handled this different in the front of this proposal rather than come back in the arrears, be aggressive, be proactive, not reactive?
Well, you guys have an attorney too, and I don't know, I guess you didn't ask Jeff that question. I'd mentioned this before in a prior Seed meeting, that this was going to take place at the end of the process. But y'all have Jeff to rely on. He's never at your meetings, which I think is a mistake, because he could be opining right now if he was on the screen. But if y'all didn't ask Jeff, that's on y'all. I asked my attorney, and that's what he told me. Are there any other questions about that?
Ken, you just stated that you had talked to Jeff. Could you repeat what he told you, please?
His initial response was just asking the question. He said, I don't think we owned it. And then we just had further conversation about it. And I asked him to get hold of Mr. Santee and start that conversation. And that's when he talked about that if we had a resolution, that there'd be certain verbiage that he would like to see in it. So that was kind of where he left it off to us when he was going to get a hold of Mr. Santee.
As a political subdivision, don't we enjoy the same sovereign immunity that the city does?
That's a question for your lawyer. I'm not sure.
Okay, so I guess Ken will be getting with Jeff here just pretty quick.
Yeah, like I said, we've already met with him twice on it, and we're seeing what his report's going to be on what he feels like we ought to do going forward.
Okay, anybody else? So we'll move to item 5B and Russell Jones, Newman Splash Pad project update.
Good morning. Just wanted to update on the construction of the splash pad and kind of where we're at. Construction went well. I put together a little timeline to show kind of how fast this process went. And beginning on February the 18th, is when we first started receiving shipments of the splash pad components. Just shortly after that, we had a couple of rain delays, and the company had to take a couple of days before they could get started. By February 24th, we had concrete foundation constructed. All the plumbing was in place. And March 4th, we had the landscape and irrigation company chosen. March 5th, we chose the electrical contractor. March 9th, we had pre-construction meeting on site with the electrical contractor. April 20th, we had pre-construction meeting on site with the landscaper. By April 22nd, the shade structure, the picnic table, and benches were completed. By April the 28th, the electrical was completed and finalized. By April 30th, we had startup and calibration of the splash pad. By May 1st, we had the landscaping and irrigation completed, which was almost one of the last steps of construction. To this date, we're waiting for available times for training for the splash pad for staff. We have requested this week, May the 11th through the 14th, May the 18th through the 22nd. So we're still working with Vortex to try to get that completed. The splash pad's ready to go. And so, depending on what's going on right now with the governor's orders, once he lifts those and we get our training in, we should be ready to open. And that's all I have.
And to add to that, Misha and I met with Tal on Thursday and did a walkthrough of the splash pad, not operationally, just looking at all the equipment, looking at the concrete, the grasses, the sprinkler system, the housing unit. In the time that I've spent trying to learn on splash pads in the last 18 months, is it a lot of money? Yes, it is. Did the quality of workmanship? They did a really good job. When you stand and look at how the water is going to be recycled and how it's going to be saved, and the shade structure, that's actually turned out and feels much bigger than I expected it to. There's a picnic table, 2 benches under there, plus quite a bit of other shade area. And the way it's designed, that small infant area, later part of the afternoon, we'll actually have part of the shade that will shine over it. So that, I think there's just the design end up pretty good. And honestly, I'm quite impressed with the final product. I'd be glad to answer any questions from the staff point of view that you might have. I think Misha's done a great job on keeping track of the finance side. She was working on the colors and combinations. And again, I think the workmanship from all the ones I've seen in Abilene and Brownwood and other locations, I think we have the nicest finished one that I've come across.
I guess unrelated to the topic, but related to the project, do we have any guidance or do we have any anticipation of when the splash pad could be utilized?
This is David. The governor has explicitly prohibited splash pads from being open. I sent that email out to Ken and Misha probably last week, Ken.
Yes,
And
sir.
so until he lifts that order, even if we were ready to go 100% with the transfer of ownership and all that, we wouldn't be able to be open to open the splash pad until he lifts that order.
And, you know, along with that, the hotel motel industry, they have lifted the pool openings for there to be able to do only 25%. Of course, those are privately owned, so they're not governmental entities, but they have been lifted through the tourism industry to be able to do 25% capacity. I think there's no other questions on that part. I think Carolyn, we're ready to go to number 6.
Okay, is that 25%? Is that just for the tourism industry or is that for all pools?
The comment that we got from the tourism industry, it was the governor's response to the hotel motel industry itself.
I think it's all pools, right?
Very well
If the
could
city
be
were
a
to-
private
if the city
pool.
were to open, we could only
25%.
open at 25% capacity.
Right, 25% capacity. So our swimming pool would, in Sweetwater would, at 25% capacity, that would have been, what, 75 kids, something like that. So,
75 kids is
there
what
we-
Russell said.
yeah. Okay, so I guess any other comments, questions? Right, so we'll move to item 6, Assistant Marketing Director's report, please.
Right. I just have a couple of things. Our analytics are a little down, but only by about 100 views for the last month. We're normally at about 680 or 700 on our website, and we're sitting at about 570 right now, our users anyway. In light of COVID, we had to cancel our senior interview program that we do. Normally, we interview every senior in Nolan County, so we kind of compromised a little bit. And Ken and I have actually done a virtual presentation to the Roscoe and Highland seniors, just to kind of go over what they would have learned, or what we hope they would have taken from senior interviews. And it was about a 20-minute session, and we did it by Zoom on both Roscoe and Highland. We're trying to get Sweetwater and Blackwell on board, but haven't had a whole lot of response or luck doing that there. But at least we got 2 of the 4 so far. A couple of things on the website. We've added a couple of tools that have kind of come to us, you know, for free. I have a COVID-19 impact map on there that's really useful. It'll show how many cases we have in the area, deaths, where the healthcare bed locations are, and how many we have, testing locations, and so on. It's under our community profile. It's listed as COVID-19 impact map. We've also added a demographic dashboard that shows like real-time information. And the most useful thing I think on this tool that we've added is the incoming and outgoing workers, and kind of seeing the difference in those in the past month or 2, as opposed to, you know, prior times before all the COVID was hit. And it shows things like unemployment and just kind of like labor force and all that good stuff. So those are a couple of things I've added over the last few weeks to our website. in the next couple of weeks, I'll be working with our current website designer to start consolidating some of the information on our current website so we can, start preparing to build our new one. I've met with about 5 companies, 5 website designing companies, and think, kind of in my mind that we have one, but I'll be presenting those to you whenever we start talking about our budget retreat and stuff. Another thing that as we've researched other communities and stuff, I've seen a lot of economic developments put out quarterly newsletters. And so Ken and I kind of discussed this, and this is something that I think would be useful to our community just to kind of keep them updated. We would have stuff such as job postings, labor force and employment charts, upcoming events, projects that our economic development office is working on, any kind of industry or business news that we could publish, community news, housing updates or real estate updates, just kind of like a little useful thing, and we would kind of submit it once quarterly, and I plan to have our first one done by the end of June. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any
Misha,
questions?
I was just going to comment, Carolyn, I think that's awesome what Misha was describing as the quarterly update. I look forward to seeing your first edition. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Misha, who all will be receiving that?
So we're going to compose some contacts. I'll also have a sign sheet on there on our website if you don't receive it, which I'm sure all of y'all will receive it. All of our business and industry contacts that we kind of keep an update with in contact with will receive it. And then also there'll be a form on our website that you can go on and subscribe to it as well, if, for the public and everything.
And then on top of that, we'll also make a connection on our social media where they can go back to our website to be able to pull that up.
Thank you. So are we ready to move on to the executive director update?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Two
you,
main
Ken.
things I've got. One of them is kind of the COVID-19 updates, and I guess everything that we're talking about revolves around the COVID-19. But one of the projects we worked on and worked with the chamber on is Congressman Arrington had wanted some videos, and it was kind of interesting. Russ happened to be on one of the videos. We did 4 from Sweetwater. They actually showed 11 total, and of those 11, 3 of them came out of Nolan County. One with our church, one with Larry Locke, one with Russ Petty. And then the White House actually retweeted those on their social media outlets. Jody got ahead of the game and did some really good stuff with that. So we just thought it was interesting that as big as his territory is, and was able to put together 11 videos, that 3 of them came out of the small West Texas county of Nolan County. So we're pretty pleased with that. Business and industry update. I thought what we'd do on this one is, and each month I'm going to try to do a different industry sector, but I kind of reached out to our manufacturing sector to kind of see where they're at and how business is going for them. Didn't get a response from all of them, but did get a response from most of them. And quite honestly, it's a pretty good response so far. Cesar Solis out of Georgia Pacific, they've been able to maintain most of their production volumes. Of course, they have had the issues of COVID-19 and how do you operate a manufacturing facility and clean it and make sure it's safe to all the people and stuff. So they've been doing all that and making sure that their employees are safe. But at this point in time, business has still been pretty strong. I think that a common language that will come out of all these is that business has been pretty good, and they're just trying to figure out when will any drop-off start to come. Some of them are expecting it fairly soon. Some of them really don't know. Talked with USG. Theirs is actually kind of a little different than some of the others. Their business has been very strong. Their employees have not missed a paycheck of any kind so far. But what they are planning for, because they do see a slowdown coming up over the next several months, is that they're probably going to start doing a furlough program, but it's going to be interesting on how they do it in comparison with most companies. they're going to have everybody at their Sweetwater plant will be furloughed at one point or another, including the general manager. They're going to do it in different stages. And at this point, they only expect that furlough to last probably a week and a half for each individual. And there'll be a few handful of people that'll probably go a little bit farther than that. But their UFG is interesting. Their Texas plants have been the strongest of any of the plants they have. There's actually some of their plants in other states that are sitting at about 50% production. Sweetwater is in Houston are staying at 100% right now, very strong. So we hope that in the recovery they'll continue to do that strong. And part of that is it's a low-cost plant to produce. So if you're going to shut down a place, you shut down a place, it costs you a lot more. So we've been able to really do that well there. Talked with Larry Ludlam at Ludlam's. They've been, in fact, he said, first opening line said, we are treating the difficulties caused by COVID-19 concerning our sales volume as a temporary thing. And he said that, you know, they're basically been staying pat. One of the things, they do a lot of things with governmental contracts. And he said the refreshing thing is so far that the governmental contracts have been postponed, but not canceled. He said, so that's a big deal. He said, we're still making stuff for the companies. It's just they're going to deliver it 30, 60, 90 days later than they originally would have. But he also added in a very nice statement to our seed group, is that because of the help from seed over the years, although this whole thing will sting a bit, we are in a position to make any losses manageable. And I think he just kind of shows that back to what this board and future past boards have done to help Ludlam's do what they do and get to where they're at. Talked with EMA. They're actually having their best year ever. In fact, they're online right now to do 460 units. Part of that is because of the PTC is expected to be completed at the end of this year. There is some discussion of the IRS possibly extending it one more year, and not with any more monies, but just the opportunity to use that because of some of the slowdowns. They're sitting at 40 employees. We go back to when they first started and they had about 21 or 22. So they've almost doubled. They're going to hire another 3 people for summer positions. To give you an idea of kind of where they've been, in 2018, they did 275 units. 2019, they did 313. Of course, they're on line to do 460. 2021 is projected at someplace between 350 and 380 because of that possible PTC expiring. But he said that would still be the second best year they've ever had, even with that slowdown. And plus, they're also developing some new projects and new parts that they'll be selling. They don't know how that's going to go yet, but they will have them on the market starting in 2021. Talked with John Brinkman at Icy Breeze, and of course, you would expect that his volume is slowed down some because his is an outdoor activity. A lot of the shows that he goes to is slowed down, and most of them have canceled. But he's been able to maintain all his employees throughout this, and said in the last 2 weeks that his volumes are starting to increase a little bit. He's starting to get the calls, and people are starting to get back to whatever this new normal is going to be. And then I've got one other one. Wasn't able to hear from Boozy, but I did get a roundabout for Boozy. I talked with Larry Locke, who's doing all the loads for the rail. And he said, as an example, in February, and part of this was not COVID related, part of it was actually just some issues they had at their plant, some machinery that had to be reworked, some logistics issues. They only did 67 rail loads then. Well, that was in the whole month of February. Last week, they did 107 rail loads. They're projected the week before, they did 106. They're already projected right now at 140 for this week. And part of it is that being the new plant, this plant makes cement for regular construction, but it also makes cement for the oil field side. That side has dropped down, but the other side has been picking up. He said that normally in Dallas, they only purchase about 100 or 100,000 tons. He said right now they're on track to do 600,000 tons. He said the The volume in Dallas has just been amazing. They also store this product in Temple, so a lot of this product is going to those two places. And this is one of the plants that can switch back and forth from making one to the other. So it's been quite well for him. We do see sales tax concerns, down the line, as travel has been light, your gas stations, your lodging has all been affected. Your restaurants have been affected. Our events have been affected. The Coliseum just doesn't have those events, and so far is not up and running. We did hear that the event center in Abilene is now starting to do some events, and they've had to change it drastically. They'd have an event that would be a 5-day event where everybody would come in and do all their social stuff and do the events. Now they're setting up that if I'm going to that event, everything that I do, I would do in one day, and I would come in, do my event, and then at the end of the day, I'd leave and go home. So they're starting to restructure, and we know that that's going to affect us and our sales tax receipts going forward. I think that's kind of a thumbnail sketch. I would also just mention that we've had a Project Jupiter that people have been talking about for some time. If you look in Thursday's newspaper, Sweetwater Reporter, there's a legal listing in there where they will be going to the county for talks about tax abatement at the June 8th meeting. And no, I can't say much more than that.
Ken, is there any update on Global Fiberglass Solutions?
I have not been able to get any more information. I know that one of the people that had been kind of the mainstays locally is not with them anymore. Last we talked with them was in January, and there's been no response since then. So we're reaching out to them to try to find out what's going on. Thanks for that question. If there's no question, that's my report.
Thank you, Ken. Does anybody have any other questions? Anything we need to talk about? Okay. So, and Misha, you'll get us those spreadsheets and then also the interlocal agreement and the original resolution. I would like to see that.
Yeah. So yeah, the resolution, the interlocal agreement for the splash pad, the spreadsheets for the splash pad and the apartments is what I have down to get y'all. And Gil will get you a hard copy. I'll send you one in an email, but I'll get you a hard copy as well.
A copy in the email will be fine, Misha. I don't have to take a hard copy. Yeah, I just didn't want it on the screen and not be able to retain it.
Okay, yes, I'll send everyone that in an email then.
Okay. I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. It's 11:33 and we are adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thank you, everybody, and have a blessed day.